I was still in the hospital bed. The gown was still on. The IV line had just come out 20 minutes before. And on the screen of my phone, a text he sent from the chair next to me, time-stamped 11:47 p.m., read, "At least now the timing works out for us." He wasn't talking to me. I fell in love with Darius Achabe at a crawfish boil in Midtown, June 2019. He showed up overdressed, white linen shirt at a backyard party with newspaper on the tables, and he didn't know how to peel a single crawfish. I taught him. He got seasoning in his eye and laughed so hard he knocked over his beer. I remember thinking, this man has no idea what he's doing, and he doesn't care who sees it. We were married 2 years later. I'm a labor and delivery nurse at Regional 1 in Memphis. 12-hour shifts, nights mostly. I've delivered over 300 babies. I've held the hands of women at the most vulnerable moment of their lives. I am very good at staying calm when everything around me is falling apart. I thought that was just a work skill. Darius was in medical device sales, good income, flexible schedule, great benefits. We bought a house in Cordova, nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms because we planned to fill them. That was always the plan. Kids, a family. He wanted it more than I did at first, honestly. He was the one who brought up timelines, researched fertility clinics, started a savings account labeled Baby Fund before we even started trying. When we couldn't conceive naturally after a year, he was the one who said, "Let's not wait, let's get help." I picked up extra shifts to cover what insurance didn't. He went to every appointment. He cried at the first ultrasound that showed nothing had taken. He posted about our journey on social media, not vaguely, explicitly, supporting my queen through the hardest season of our lives. My mother called him a blessing. His coworkers sent cards. The first round of IU, I failed. I blamed my body. The doctor adjusted my protocol. Darius held my hand and said, we'd try again as many times as it took. While I was picking up overnight shifts to cover the cost of our second round of treatments, he was at a medical device conference in Nashville, buying drinks for a pharmaceutical sales rep named Nicole Ferris. Their first night together was a Thursday. I was at the hospital, delivering someone else's baby. I tell you all of this so you understand. I wasn't blind. I wasn't naive. I was building something with someone who told me every single day that he was building it too. The second round of IU I worked. Positive test, 8 weeks along, heartbeat confirmed. Darius cried. Posted a photo of the ultrasound with no caption except a heart. My mother started knitting. At 11 weeks, I started bleeding during a shift. One of my own co-workers wheeled me into triage. Darius arrived 20 minutes later, still in his work clothes, face wrecked. He held my hand through the entire thing. He stayed the night in the hospital chair beside me. He called my mother. He brought me home the next morning and made soup and ran a bath and said all the right words. Everything about those 48 hours looked like love. The third day after the miscarriage, I was on the couch and Darius was making dinner. I said, "The doctor wants to talk about when we can try again." Normal sentence. The kind we'd said to each other a dozen times. He didn't turn around, just kept stirring and said, "Maybe we should take a break from all this." All this. 2 years of treatments, shots I gave myself in the bathroom at 4 a.m, $14,000 out of pocket, a baby we lost. All this. I didn't argue, but I noticed. because Darius had never once been the one to suggest stopping. He was the engine, and engines don't just quit without a reason. Over the next week, small things stacked. His phone was always in his pocket now. He used to leave it on the kitchen counter like it was furniture. He started going to the gym at hours that didn't match his old routine. A Tuesday night at 9, a Saturday morning at 6. Darius hated mornings. I told myself grief changes people. I told myself maybe he was handling the loss differently. My friend Keisha asked me if everything was okay at home, and the way she paused before the word okay sat in my chest for 2 days. While I was sitting in a follow-up appointment alone, Darius said he had a client meeting he couldn't move. The nurse practitioner squeezed my hand and said, "She was sorry about the loss." I thanked her. I drove home. I opened the front door and smelled cologne. Darius had showered at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I almost asked. The question was on my tongue. Where were you? I swallowed it. Not because I was afraid of the answer, because I was afraid I already knew it. The call came on a Wednesday. I was in the break room between patients, eating a granola bar, still in scrubs. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hi, is this Celine?" "This is Nicole. Nicole Ferris. I need to talk to you about Darius." The granola bar was still in my hand for the entire 14-minute call. Nicole was panicking. She was 6 weeks pregnant. Darius had told her we were separated, living apart, finalizing paperwork. She believed him until she saw his Instagram post from the hospital. Him holding my hand, tears on his face, the caption about strength and faith. She put the pieces together the same day I lost the pregnancy. She said she felt sick. I believe her. She sent screenshots without me asking. Their texts, his voice notes, 5 months of messages. The affair started in February, the same month we began the second IUI cycle. Every date she described matched a night I was working. Every hotel was within 20 minutes of our house. He used our joint credit card, the one linked to the savings account labeled Baby Fund. I scrolled through the messages on the break room couch. My hands were steady because they're always steady. I had a patient in 20 minutes. One message stopped me. Sent the night of the miscarriage. Time stamped 11:47 p.m. I was in the hospital bed. He was in the chair beside me. He had just wiped his eyes and told me we'd get through this. The text to Nicole read, "At least now the timing works out for us." I read it 3 times. My body did something I didn't expect. It went very still. No crying, no shaking, no nausea. Just still, the way the monitors go flat. I took screenshots of everything, saved them to a folder on my phone, named it Insurance Documents. Then I finished my granola bar, washed my hands, and walked into room 6 to check a patient's dilation. That is the part people argue about later, that I kept working, that I didn't leave. But you need to understand, there was a woman in room 6 who was about to have a baby, and she needed me to be the person I've always been. So I was. 3 days later, I was sitting in my car in the parking garage at 6:45 a.m. Shift started at 7. I pulled up the screenshot of the 11:47 text. I looked at the timestamp. I looked at the parking garage concrete. I put the phone in my scrub pocket. That night, I delivered 2 babies, both healthy, both screaming. I held each one before handing them to their mothers, and I felt my hands, steady, warm, precise. If I can do this, I thought. If I can hold their world together on the worst night of mine, then I can hold my own together long enough to handle what comes next. I stopped thinking about Darius as my husband. I started thinking about him as a problem with a solution. Yeah, I know. Worst possible time to cut in. But I need you to subscribe right now because I'm trying to raise enough money to buy a decommissioned lighthouse, and I refuse to explain why. Subscribe button's right there. Okay, back to Celine. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney named Ruth Okafor. Consultation was Tuesday at noon. I told Darius I had a dentist appointment. Here is what people don't realize about being a nurse in labor and delivery. You understand insurance architecture better than most lawyers. You know how beneficiaries work, how COBRA triggers, how billing cycles overlap with coverage gaps, what happens when a dependent is added or removed from a plan. You know what gets documented and what doesn't. That knowledge became my entire strategy. First, I pulled our joint credit card statements going back 6 months. Every hotel charge cross-referenced against Nicole's timeline. Every charge fell during a month we were actively paying for fertility treatment. Ruth called it textbook dissipation of marital assets. Spending joint funds on an affair while your spouse is sacrificing income for shared medical costs. Second, I changed my own insurance beneficiaries. Darius was listed on everything: life insurance, retirement, disability. I moved what I legally could to my mother. Quietly. Third, I built a spreadsheet. Dates of every IUI appointment, every charge, every shift I picked up to cover costs, matched against the affair timeline. Ruth said she'd never seen a client show up to consultation with a fully indexed exhibit. Fourth, I kept going home every night and eating dinner across from a man who thought I didn't know. That was the hardest part. Not the anger, the acting. He'd tell me about his day and I'd nod and say, "That's good, babe." He'd reach for me in bed and I'd let him hold my hand, because pulling away would raise a flag. 2 weeks into the plan, I almost lost it. Darius was doing laundry, one of his guilt chores, and he found Ruth Okafor's business card in my scrub jacket pocket. He held it up when I walked in the kitchen. "Who's Ruth Okafor?" My heart rate didn't change. 2 years of keeping women calm through emergency deliveries will do that. Janelle from postpartum. She's going through a divorce and asked if I knew anyone. I grabbed a card from the hospital board. He nodded, put the card on the counter, made a joke about Janelle's husband. I laughed at the joke, picked up the card, and put it back in my wallet. That night I sat in the bathroom with the door locked and didn't breathe normally for 10 minutes. The evening I chose, I told Darius I wanted to talk about trying again. His face did a complicated thing. Performance concern, real panic, forced optimism. He sat at the kitchen table. I sat across from him. He gave a speech, thoughtful, rehearsed. Maybe we should take a year. Focus on us. Let our bodies rest. He said our bodies like he'd carried any of it. I let him finish. Then I put a manila folder on the table. Open it. Inside. 6 months of credit card statements with hotel charges highlighted in yellow. The full screenshot thread from Nicole. The 11:47 p.m. text on top, time-stamped and circled, and the divorce petition, already filed, citing dissipation of marital assets during active fertility treatment. Darius didn't open his mouth for almost 30 seconds. Then he started with, "Celine, you don't understand the full." "I understand exactly the full. It was a mistake. It just happened. I was stressed about the treatments and The card statements show it happened 14 times at the Hilton on Poplar while I was at work, while we were paying for IUI with the same card." He put his face in his hands. Then he looked up and said the thing that rebuilt the entire story in my head. "Nicole wasn't the first." Silence. "During the first round, there was someone. It didn't last. But I wasn't focused. I missed appointments. I forgot the supplements. I wasn't." He stopped talking, but I heard what he didn't say. "The first round failed. The doctor said sometimes it just doesn't take. I blame my body. I adjusted my diet, my sleep, my stress levels, my shifts. I did everything differently for round 2 because I thought I was the variable. I wasn't the variable." I said nothing else. He kept talking, crying, bargaining, circling back to how the stress of trying broke something in him. I stood up, picked up the folder, and said, "Your mother already knows. So does your sister. So does Terrence and David. I sent them the screenshot this morning." That is the part the audience splits on. Before the conversation, before he even knew I knew, I sent his inner circle the 11:47 p.m. text with no caption. Just the screenshot. His mother, who called him a blessing, saw what he wrote from the chair beside my hospital bed. His sister, who organized the prayer circle after the miscarriage. His best friends, who toasted our pregnancy. Some people say I should have let the divorce speak for itself. Some people say the text spoke for him. Darius moved out the following weekend. Ruth fast-tracked the petition. The dissipation claim held. Every dollar spent on hotels during active treatment months was documented and flagged. I kept the house. I kept my retirement. The savings account labeled baby fund, what was left of it, came to me. I went back to work full-time a week after he moved out. My coworkers didn't ask questions. Keisha brought me coffee every morning for a month and never once said I told you so. I'm back in room 6 most nights, delivering babies, hands steady, voice calm. Last week, I helped a woman through a 36-hour labor, and when she finally held her daughter, she grabbed my wrist and said, "You are the calmest person I've ever met." I said thank you. I didn't tell her what it costs to be this calm. Nicole still calls. Once a week, sometimes twice. I haven't answered. She's due in 4 months. She is carrying my husband's child. My ex-husband's child, and she didn't know any of it was a lie until I did. I don't hate her. I don't pity her either. I just haven't decided what that conversation is yet. Some nights I drive past the hospital parking garage where I sat in my car that morning and decided to stop being his wife and start being the person who handles it. I think about the woman who walked into that shift and delivered 2 babies while her own life was ending as she knew it. She did the job. I'm still doing it. But whether I'll ever answer Nicole's calls, I haven't figured that out. I'm not sure I want to. Well, here's my take. Salim was the most dangerous kind of opponent. Someone who is professionally trained to stay calm during the worst moments of someone's life. Darius never had a chance, and he didn't deserve one. The smartest move was the spreadsheet, cross-referencing affairs spending against fertility treatment payments is not just documentation, It's a legal weapon built by someone who understands billing systems better than the man who thought he was the clever one. Now, sending that screenshot to his mother and his boys before the conversation, cold, absolutely cold, but that 11:47 p.m. text was not a private mistake. It was who he was while she was bleeding in a hospital bed. His people deserved to know who they were defending. Darius thought he was the main character of the fertility journey. Turns out he was just a line item in the credit card statement. So here's where I need your take. Was Salim right to send that screenshot to his family before confronting him? Or should she have let the divorce do the talking? Drop your answer in the comments because this one's going to split the room. Next story is already on the screen. Tap it now. And if you're not subscribed, fix that. Because you clearly appreciate someone who can hold it together when the world's falling apart. And this channel is full of people exactly like that.